Good evening and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sport. I'm your host, as always, Randy Isbell. With me to my that way, Robert Hagan. It always gets really confusing as you're on my right on my screen, but you could I don't know what's happening.
I must be doing a little bit better than you are. I mean, I think my temperature at one point here in the LC Valley on my computer today showed 118 degrees. I don't know what it is in your house, but it has been a super hot day.
It's been ridiculous.
Denise said her car even at one point today said 125 degrees. I saw another person's car said 133. So
My phone currently says 111. It's 7 o'clock at night and it's 111 outside. It's gross. It's terrible. It's made my brain completely stop working, which is not hard to do, right? Because it doesn't work very hard, anyways. We are an hour late. You can blame me for it, kind of. But I did warn Robert. I had an interview at 5. I could run a little late. Get us an interview and then just get going. Not only did you not get an interview, sir, then you were too chicken to go on the air by yourself. Oh, come on, man.
I tried to get interviews. I know a couple of the girls. I tried to get a couple of the Bantam girls to join us, but they were just coming back from vacation, and so
That's
they
okay.
really didn't want to hurry home and do all that. So it is what it is. It's summertime, and go figure. We do have a little bit of local sports to hit on today, as we didn't think we were going to have much anything local to talk about, but we've got one story coming up here
Always something.
about the 7 o'clock hour, so or
Yeah,
eight
and
o'clock
listen,
8 o'clock hour.
I'm flipping you crap about not starting on time without me and getting things going and having me jump in. But it did let me eat some dinner and kind of cool down a little bit and get this room set up a little bit more to try to cool it down in here. I still know in 2 hours I'm going to be sweaty and gross and want to get out of this room as fast as possible.
I do like your mood lighting in there. You've got
Yeah,
some new lighting,
we've
and
got some new
so
lighting that focuses on the star of the room and kind of puts the games in a more background light. There's
so
more. I wanted to get something because when we're recording before, if I have the camera up more and you can see even more above my curtain, it gets so bright right there. If I have the room light on,
so
so I
so
just
what
didn't want to do that.
So what we're saying here is basically we need to get the Johnny Carson lit up. I will step back, be the Ed McMahon, or you could
Okay.
be the Colin Cowherd, and
Oh,
and I like Joy Taylor, but you could take the front there.
yeah, but listen, Colin Cowherd kisses the Seattle Seahawks butts too much, and I'm not into that. I'm not into that team. I'm not going to do it. On today's show, we've got all sorts of stuff. Robert and I will give our 2 top stories of the week, which mine isn't really a story, but there weren't a ton of ridiculous stories to go off on. There's a lot to talk about. Lots going on. We had our first full week with the illegal substance check. We'll talk about that. Of course, someone's favorite team had to be the first team to be a bunch of big cheaters.
Uh,
So we'll get into that. We'll talk about our power rankings. College World Series. Did Game 2 ever get started? It hadn't when I went to the interview.
I don't think
Um,
it. I've been keeping it on the Mariner game, but
Let me
I
look real
probably
quick.
should leave the Mariner game and figure something else
It is
out
in the
here.
bottom of the third inning. Vanderbilt with a chance to repeat as champions. We'll keep you up to date on that. We got some NFL news and some fun stuff to talk about there. It is the 4th of July this weekend. So we are going to be doing our top 3 patriotic sports moments. And throughout the show, I'm going to remind people listening live or people that watch this show later on, we want to know yours. Give us your top 3 patriotic sports moments of all time. Spoilers, mine mostly revolve around a certain day that happened when I was in high school, and they became very important to me. So we will go there. As Robert said, we do have some local stuff to talk about. Playoffs to get going. AFL, one of our teams won. We will let you guess which one. Golf was ridiculous this weekend. NASCAR, I hate Pocono. I have to be the first to admit both races were pretty good. We're even going to talk Tour de France and Wimbledon on this show, and the Summer Olympics are soon. There's too much to talk about. Let's get right into it. And I want to start with mine just because I want to split up the baseball. So mine is it's not really a story. It's just a lot of teams are going to hit the halfway mark this week. So I want to not break it down completely and go, okay, who's your MVP at the halfway mark and who's this and that. We'll do that next week as we get into the All Star. Or in 2 weeks when we have that All Star break to go over all of that. But Robert, I'm going to ask you right now: is there a team that you are for sure is currently outside of the playoffs right now that is going to make it into the postseason?
Outside of the playoffs right now, the team, God, it's up for grabs. I think the AL West is just shuffling around so much, but the other one, and I'm going to go to this division because I called it last week. I for the some games to watch for the week, but the NL East was such a jumbled up, switch things around. How about the Washington Nationals last week? Washington Nationals go 8-2 over the last 10. And I told you, watch the Mets and Atlanta and also Philadelphia and the Mets. And it lived up to it as every one of them was either 5-5 or less. And Washington ran away this last week with some of their games. And now Washington's 2.5 games back to the Mets. I think, the person that might make it in there will be Atlanta. Right now, they're 4.5 games back. But I think it'll come down to the final. I'm thinking a couple of weeks between the Mets and the Braves to see who gets that spot.
I honestly, that's exactly where I was going, was the NL East. I think the NL Central is really interesting with Milwaukee, as they've kind of been able to pull a few games ahead of Chicago. Cincinnati still trying to be in the mix. And as much as I like that team, and they're one of my favorite teams to watch, I don't think they're a playoff team yet. So I do think it's between the Cubs and the Brewers there. The NL West, we give all the praise to already, but I do believe that all three teams are going to make the postseason. 2 of them will be facing off in the wild card game, and 1 will win the division. On the AL side, listen, Boston's just not going away. They're like the Giants to me. I didn't expect a lot from Boston, but hats off. Give credit where credit is due. They are a fantastic team. That veteran leadership is really showing strong after the crazy year last year. Getting your head coach back after he was suspended for the year. They have turned things around. Tampa Bay, I said was going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be there too. I think Houston and Oakland both are set up to be a wild card and a division winner, and it's Chicago White Sox division there. So honestly, the only team in the AL or in the American League in general that I think that is sitting outside of it that could make it is if the Yankees can get things figured out. Everyone thought there's a lot of people that thought they were going to win 100 games this year. That's definitely not going to happen. As a Yankee fan, I can tell you right now, if you made me put $100 down on if the Yankees were going to make the playoffs or not, I would say no. They are a complete mess. They do not know how to do situational hitting. They are a really hard watch. Right now, they're winning 11-5, and the offense is going, but there's too many times. I can't count how many times they've had the bases loaded with 1 out and hit into a double play. It's just it's what they do. It's always what happens. They never run. Never. I mean, they are anti-stolen base, which, I mean, when you have big guys like Stanton and Sanchez and Judge who don't have a lot of speed, you don't run. But even Torres isn't running, and Gardner isn't running, and I don't like their style. So I'm actually going to go exactly in the same direction as you. I'm going to go to the NL East because I do think the Mets are hitting above their pay grade, even though they were my pick to win that division. And I'm going with the Washington Nationals. They've been red hot. Schwarber cannot continue to do what he's doing, even though he homered again today. But Harper has been on and off the injury list. But he's in Philadelphia. Scratch that. Told you the Heat's getting to me. But they just get Scherzer back. So that's going to be a big step for them. So I'm going to take Washington to win the NL East.
So if you had to pick a different one, so we both took a NL team, so let's play the other side. Mm-hmm. If you had to pick an AL team, and I kind of agree with you a little bit. New York will they will get going, but that's not the team I'm thinking will make the change out of that division.
Yeah, you said
Give
that.
me,
Yeah.
give me Toronto, and
Toronto in
just
the
because
AL.
Toronto in the AL right now, they are just playing unbelievable baseball. Just because I'm watching a little bit, but you looked at our power rankings. I had Toronto make a huge jump up, but how could you fight with a lineup that has George Springer, Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Gurriel, Biggio? I mean, they are just playing some unbelievable ball right now, and right now they're leading the Mariners 9-3, and they're top of the
Toronto
ninth.
has been that team that felt like they were 1 year away for the last several years, and maybe they are going to start putting things together. They're plus 65 run differential. Their expected win-loss record is actually better than Boston, who's winning the AL East. So I can't disagree with you there. I would not be shocked if the Yankees finished fourth in that division, and that's just how it is. If I had to pick an American League team, I'd pick Cleveland, just because they are very close to Chicago, and the White Sox bats have disappeared. I don't know what has happened there. It is just kind of that maybe that midseason funk for them, and getting that All-Star break is going to help them out in that aspect. But Cleveland is only what
2
2
games.
games out right now, and they are playing very well. Jose Ramirez is getting things figured out. They have a couple guys on the injured list that are going to be coming back here right around that All-Star break. That's going to help them as well. So I would say Cleveland. So if somebody we think is going to go in, who's the team that we think's going out? And you have to pick American League, because I think we both agree it's the Mets and the National League.
I think so. And you said it just a minute ago, and maybe it's just because of the way they played this last week against the Mariners, but the bats were extremely cold. The Chicago White Sox, and you and I were both on them right up at the very beginning of the year, but over the last few weeks they have stumbled offensively. So I think if they can't get something figured out here in the next few days, or even the next few weeks, you better hope and pray they get through the All-Star break, find themselves again, because they're going to have a long push with Cleveland on their tail.
I'm going to say Boston, and that's no slight on Boston. I still think there's a good chance they win at least 85 games. But as you said, Toronto has been fantastic. Again, that plus 65 run differential. Tampa Bay is very, very good as well. Tampa Bay is going to make another move or two. And not even that splash move that you expect a Boston or a Dodgers or a Yankees to make. They're just going to pick up this young arm from somebody and turn him into something ridiculous, and be that middle of the bullpen guy that just nobody talks about, but then come October, he's just killer. So could I see a Cleveland or a Toronto getting up there and passing the Boston for that last wild card spot? Sure. But honestly, the AL, the teams that they have right now, I would bet that those are the 5 teams we have in the playoffs, more than which team is going to move out. And it's not going to make for a lot of drama if it stays that way, but we will see. And that's where I bring up another question. So we only brought up a couple teams that we feel are out of the playoffs right now that can move in. We've said Cleveland, we've said Toronto, we've said Washington and Atlanta, right? So does that mean all of these other teams, including our own teams, the Mariners and the Yankees, are they sellers come the trade deadline? Or do you think one of these teams might be just a move or two away in August or in July for that trade deadline to make that late season push?
Well, I think both of our teams are just one move away. I mean,
the Yankees are more than one. Oh my God, the Yankees are more than one.
Well, I don't get to watch them as much as you got. MLB, you have MLB TV, and so you're able to watch your Yankees a little bit more. But
correction, the Yankees are one move away. Fire Aaron Boone. That's all they need to do.
So is it? So who would you replace him with? That's where I would.
Anyone that does not. I'm a numbers guy, but I would put anyone that is not looking at sabermetrics as a Bible. Sabermetrics are great to base things off of and kind of work your philosophy around, but it cannot be the end all be all. And that is what it is for the Yankees. It is all about home runs. It's all about whether they had a game against the Royals last week where they walked like 10 times, 11 times, and scored like 3 runs. Like, they had people on base constantly, and there was zero situational hitting. I was listening to the game yesterday where the first game against the Angels, where they ended up losing that game. The commentators were shocked that it was 3-2 with 1 out, and they actually made the runner go from first, because the Yankees never do that. And you need to be able to do that more. And it worked out perfectly, because it hit right to the second baseman. Would have been another Yankee double play, but because they moved the runner, they at least got him to second. Of course, he doesn't score, because that's what the Yankees do. It's such a mess. But you're thinking Seattle's one move away? You're muted, sir.
I forgot I coughed, and so I turned off my mic. I think they need one more arm. They need one more arm that could either be the long relief or take that spot role pitching. Gonzalez is out for a couple weeks or a couple of games, I believe, on leave for having his baby. Congratulations to Marco Gonzalez and them having their baby. But I think they just need one more pitcher. If we've got the guys down in the farm system to bring up, but they're gonna have to start figuring things out. Cal Seager, you can see in his bat he's not getting any younger, to the point of we need to start making some changes there. And as much as I love the way he played, and he's always been that hustle guy, you can see it in the way the family was brought up. Corey Seager, same way. I think those two, they're cut from the same cloth. There's your thought. Why don't you get the Seager dad to go and coach for your New York Yankees? Be kind of interesting.
Right now. I'll take anything.
Yeah.
If I were the Yankees and I was making one move, it's getting Brian Reynolds from Pittsburgh. He's been fantastic down there on a team that's really struggling. So obviously you can give them one of your prospects. Clint Frazier has just missed the mark. He looked so good early on, and I don't know what has happened in 2020 and only getting the 60 game in and having the issues of whether he will get put into the majors or not. And the one time he got called down, he threw a hissy fit about it. But he has looked completely off. He's batting like 180 on the year. I had put it on the power rankings on Monday, so you can check that out on the R&R Sports Report Facebook page. But Brian Reynolds is batting 440 in the last week, knocking in 8 runs. Has been a fantastic bat in the outfield. Yankees need that outfield depth with Aaron Hicks out. I mean, they're trotting out Brett Gardner far more often than they need to with how old he is. So that's the move I would make for them. How about in the National League? Is there a team right now that could be buyers and then all of a sudden make a late run out of the teams that we haven't talked about yet?
Oh boy, if you look buyers, I think it has to be maybe Washington or Philadelphia. I mean, that division, we've talked about it. I know we don't want to talk about that division because that's where we're at, but out of that division, could it be the Cubbies to finally make a push? Because it's been kind of Milwaukee taking the steps forward. You look at Chicago and what they're doing over the last few, and I think having the no-hitter over the Dodgers the other day, getting a couple good arms with Davies, could that be the right move for him? Who knows? But I think they could easily get in there, especially right now they're facing the Brewers. Right now it's the getting ready to go in the top of the 6th, and the Brewers are only up 2-1. So maybe a bat. I think the Cubs could be a buyer and make a push here.
The Cubs are so interesting because, as you said, they're right there as far as the records go. They're 4.5 out of the wild card because they've lost their last 4 games, and it's going to be tough to get to the Padres. They're 4 games behind Milwaukee right now. I agree. They should be sellers, but at what point, if this continues to slide a little bit and their offseason issues that they're going to be coming up against, do you start to think about being sellers and getting ready? Because for people, we talked about at the beginning of the season, but the Cubs have Javier Baez, Chris Bryant, and Anthony Rizzo all as free agents next year. So do you move one or two of those pieces and rebuild and get ready for next year, or do you go all in and with a good chance that one or two or maybe all three of them are not going to return, and just go all in to try to get one more championship run in you before this old guard moves on? It's very, very interesting, and they're in that perfect spot of like they should be buyers, but if they are buyers, then they're really tanking their future next couple of years. It's really fascinating to me. I would love to see Cincinnati be buyers and just go for it. I mean, Luis Castillo has been fantastic over those last few starts. The offense is so fun to watch. I with you with saying with a couple of these other teams, I think they just need another arm or two, and to make those moves to take that next big push. So that's my pick.
I think the Cubs need to move if they get out of the All-Star break and they're still slipping behind like they have the last few games. I think they move. I think honestly they move Rizzo or Bryant. One of those two names will be gone. How do you keep both of those guys happy? Rizzo is the main first baseman, but Bryant plays first. Bryant plays out in the left field. I mean, he's been that guy all over the place. But
who do you think brings in a bigger haul?
Well, I think Rizzo would bring in the bigger haul, but
I don't think so. But
it'll be interesting. But a lot depends on where they're at. I think at the All-Star break, if they continue, like you said, on this slide, totally out of it, look for them to unload, and you could even unload a couple of the others. You look at even some of the arms on there. Craig Kimbrel, he's not getting any younger. Craig's getting into, I want to say, mid-30s right now. Granted, he is the main closer right now, but they've been hit with so many injuries this year too. They've got Matt Duffy on the IL, the 60-day IL. They've got Horner right now. Who else is on there? Bote is on there. So they've got a lot of injuries they've been dealing with, and you feel bad for that ball club, but they've got to figure something.
Everyone has injuries. Screw them.
I think that us going in, I think it was them and Milwaukee coming down to the end, and so it'll be interesting to see what pans out over the next couple of weeks coming into the All-Star break.
All right, sir. Now it is time for Robert's top story.
Oh, well, you and I had talked for a few minutes prior to the show just about it, and you hadn't heard much about it, but here's my thing, and it's my story came, and I heard about it, and I told you I couldn't remember if it was Wednesday or if it was Thursday. I've really got into watching golf a lot here lately. Who wouldn't want to watch Brooks Koepka, McIlroy, DeChambeau, watch these guys hit the ball, hit it long and hit it far, and just what we've been seeing, we like to watch our buddy Joel, and do that stuff. And the big story that I heard over the last week, and I read a story and it took place a few weeks ago, was the idea of this group called the Player Advisory Council. And they call themselves PAC. And so they're just a bunch of players on there that are looking at rules, looking at things for tournaments, and making things better. Well, the council now has voted as a whole, and this is coming from the chairman, Rory McIlroy, to get rid of the Greens reading books. Those big books, the ones you see Bryson DeChambeau, Phil Mickelson, those guys have, and get rid of those and kind of put them away. Those came out in the 2008 season, and basically they're a book. I think they said there was like 7 inches long or so, but they describe the greens. They describe the rises where they drop off, how much with arrows on there. I got to reading about those books. These books 3/8 of an inch on a book is 5 yards. So think about that as a caddy. If you're out there on the free and this is a good question for Gino. If we ever get Gino to quit to come back on the show, I know he's been extremely busy, but this is a good question for him. And I don't know how much him and Joel uses a green reading book, but for me, I kind of agree with it. It kind of levels the playing field. And Rory McIlroy says, I use a green book, but I'd like to get rid of them. I mean, it's just crazy to think about. And looking at the research about these companies, there's a couple of companies that make these books for the tour. And just a book for a tournament, costs $170 to the players for a green read book. 170. You know, I think even if you make the cut and you finish like at the bottom of the list, you're still paying out, close to $200 for a book. But you have to be very specific on watching and looking at these books. How does the green break? But then you look, and after I read this story and I started watching a bunch and seeing Bryson DeChambeau, how many times he pulled that out of his pocket on the hole, and even playing his second shot into the green, how many times he pulled that book out, look at it, put it away, address the ball, come back, and he put it back, and pull it back out, even putting the ball over the top. And from what I've seen is it has increased the times almost 15 minutes around. Now you figure that 15 minutes around for one person, start adding that up for a few of these others that you get lagged behind. And some colleges use these greens books, but they're looking at going away from them because it has slowed down the tournament so much. And so I get rid of the book. Let's even the playing field. And I did tell you about an article I read through what's called the Caddy Network, and they talk to different caddies along the PGA Tour, and they're in the same boat. It takes a lot to read these books. You can imagine once these players, caddies, get the books probably on Tuesday on their practice rounds, how much time they dive into these books. What happened to you, like you and I, go out on the green, look, read the green, and they're going to play different every day anyway.
Let's just set the record straight. You and I go out on green and pretend to read it,
but
and then get upset because we did it wrong.
Yeah, but let's put that into everybody's wheelhouse. Make them do that every time, and I think I agree with that. Even back out the playing field. Augusta National does not allow it during the Masters, so let's just even it back out. Sorry that these companies are going to lose their job of producing the books. I mean, they could still produce a book for a player to use during practice rounds, but you don't bring it out during the other. So, I mean, there's pluses and minuses, but I'm all about leveling the field a little bit more. You look at the clubs these guys have nowadays. You got driver, 3-wood, and the next thing you know, none of these guys have any other irons until they're like a 6-iron. And then they're 6, 7, 8, and that. So, the clubs have gotten so good lately. The golf balls, let's put the book away and, let's see what you can do with an iron and get it into the hole within 5 yards of the pin.
Well, I don't think the book is making their iron play any better. It's just helping them understand the distance. And I think, honestly, it'd probably be better on the greens than anything, as far as being able to understand that without having to go out as much. But I don't know. We will definitely see how that changes and what will come from it. Hopefully it will speed up the game a little bit.
So my question to you then is, who does it affect the most? I mean, I looked back at this week and rewatched a little bit of highlights, and the two people that use it the most is Bryson DeChambeau and Phil Mickelson. I mean, Phil, yeah, you're 50 years old, but you just won a big tournament. Bryson, you've won 2 tournaments so far this year.
Honestly, it's whoever uses that stuff the most and are going to have the hardest time adapting back to the older style without those books. So, again, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Let's go to some Major League Baseball news. And another week, another no-hitter has been thrown. It's so much. Combined no-hitter for the Chicago Cubs as they no-hit the Los Angeles Dodgers. It was not one of the 3 victims. What was it? The Mariners, the Indians, and the Tigers
Mm-hmm.
were the three that have happened so far this year. So we're tied with the most in modern era. The record is 8 way back in 1884. But from everything I've heard back then, you could get a running start when you threw. It was just a pitcher's box. You just had to be in the box to throw. It wasn't a mound. So we shouldn't count that. Anyways, but Zach Davies, Ryan Tepera, Andrew Coffin, and Craig Kimbrell went out. Kimbrell was ridiculous, striking out the 3 in the 9th inning for the no-hitter. It is the 17th no-hitter in Chicago Cubs history. When will be the next one, sir?
The way things are going, give it to me the Saturday before the All-Star break. I mean, that's how many we're getting, and I think we obliterate this record.
Next week, when Garrett Cole faces the Seattle Mariners, that is when it will happen next.
If it wasn't so hot, I think you and I should be making a road trip over there this next week. But it is still supposed to be extremely hot.
That's brutal. Aaron Nola ties Tom Seaver's record of striking out 10 batters in a row. It was really interesting as Seaver did it to finish the last 10 batters. This was the first 10 outs for Aaron Nola after letting the first 2 get on. So he had 2 runners on, struck out the side, and then just kept going. But because it is baseball, he didn't even get the win. No. Phillies blow it and end up losing the game 2-1 in extra innings of the first game of their doubleheader. But let's get to it. And if you are watching this later on YouTube, when you clicked on our link, it is the picture of this man, and that is what is here. But Hector Santiago of the Seattle Mariners, the first evil cheater in Major League Baseball history. This is worse than the steroid era. What do you have to say for yourself, Mariner fan?
You know, he even talked about it. Scott Service talked about it. He was okay and was told by an umpire that you could use that rosin, and he was sweating so bad that they were using rosin that day, and he had a ton of rosin on the back part of his hand, of his non-throwing hand, and on his wrist and the glove of his glove hand. His mitt was taken and put in a bag and said, "Okay, here we go. We'll send it off." But he is going to appeal, which is the infraction was supposed to start today. But even the umpire made the comment and said that they saw no substance on his throwing hand whatsoever. There was no substance anywhere on there. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what Major League Baseball finds with the glove. As much as I don't think he cheated, but you know, you also heard other people talk over the last 2 weeks that everybody's using some type of substance on their hand to keep it dry or hold on to it or whatever it is. But you know, I hope they find just rosin. But on the other hand, if they do, you know, make him pay. Make him pay for the 10 days. It really hurts the Mariners because they can't bring up anybody for these 10 days. So you're one guy short on the bench. So does that make you? That's going to make you have to possibly use a lot more out of your bullpen and a spot starter now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So, yeah, 10 days. I think that might be. I think that's a pretty good penalty if that goes through.
Especially if they do find substances and stuff. And it does look like he did get the 10 days and then is appealing it. We'll see where that goes. But we're about a week into this. What, 8 days, 9 days? How has it gone for you as a fan? Has it interrupted the viewing experience at all?
Not really, but I laugh every time I see the pitcher come off the mound because that's what every game has now showed is watching the pitcher walk towards his dugout and get flagged down by his by the plate or by whatever side they're coming on, third base or first base, and one of the umpires is calling him over to look at his hat. But I think the funniest, and I don't remember who it was one of the players was so upset because he was getting checked again that he literally unzipped his pants, pulled his pants down where you could see his boxers,
He wasn't
And
as much mad that he was checked again because I believe it was Sergio Romo who did that, and he's a reliever, so it would have been the first time he got checked. The guy that got upset because he was checked so many times was Max Scherzer,
oh yeah,
who pretended to undo his belt because he had been checked twice during the game, and then Joe Girardi, the manager for the Phillies, felt like he was using something, so they had the umpires go check again. He felt like he had something in his hair because he kept playing with his hair because, again, it's hot in a lot of places in the United States right now, and he was sweaty. So they go out and check. They have this argument afterwards. The internet blows up. I suggest anybody that has not seen it yet go to John Boy's reaction
Mhm.
video. He's just fantastic, anyways. But Max or Joe Girardi wasn't actually yelling at Max Scherzer. He was yelling at a former Yankees assistant who is now with the Nationals, who was yelling at Joe during this whole time. So then Joe, when he lost it, got ejected. He was actually yelling at that coach and not Max. Max was long gone by then and had no clue what was going on. But it's that honestly for a weekend, and that's the only major incident we've had out of this between managers and coaches, and managers aren't going out of their way to try to disrupt a pitcher. I'm okay with it. I'm also with you where watching as many Yankee games as I do, they've gotten to the point where they always show the pitcher coming off the mound. And now they've just even got to the point where you can tell, okay, he's getting ready to be checked, and they just go to commercial anyways. They don't even make notice of it. It's just obviously he gets stopped before the camera cuts, but they're not making a big deal out of it. I think as far as the timing of when they do it is perfect because it's not slowing down the game because you're
Mhm.
checking that pitcher while the other team's going out there starting their warm ups. So it's totally fine with me, and I'm glad they're trying to do something about it. It has made a significant difference. Offense is way up in the last week. Spin rate is ridiculously down. It is lower down now than it was 5 years ago. So we will see where that goes from here. I still think they should have done it in the off season. Just said, listen, this is what it is right now. We're going to make drastic changes in the off season, so get ready. But they've been allowing it all season. They should continue to allow it
Mhm.
throughout the rest of the season. We are starting to get closer and closer to the All Star game. So far, we know there are four different participants in the Home Run Derby, and I love all of it. Give me Shohei Ohtani in the Home Run Derby. Yes, please. I'm tired of seeing him hit home runs at Yankee Stadium. He's already hit 3 here. Pete Alonso is going to be lots of fun. Trey Mancini,
That
cancer survivor,
feel good
please
story.
win. I rig the hell out of this tournament, please, and let that man win. And Colorado's Trevor Story is also in. But let's move on to the player of the week. And I'm stealing yours from last week, and he homered again today. But I'm picking Kyle Schwarber of Washington. Just insane numbers in the last 7 days, not including today, batting 345 with 6 more home runs and 10 RBI. So back-to-back weeks he's been on our list, but good God, man. What about you?
Hey, you could easily say him. We could easily say Vlad Guerrero
Mm-hmm.
Jr. either there, but I'm going to
Otani.
go, or Otani, I'm going to go a different direction. I am also going to stay in the National League, though, but I'm going to go Jake Cronenworth, San Diego's second baseman, played first place. He has been out in the outfield. He has been all over the field. And he is bad, and they're trying to find places to keep him in the lineup, especially with the guys that are there. You know, you've got um, got Machado, you've got Tatis, you've got Hosmer, all these big names that are doing quite well there. And all Jake does this last week is go 391, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs on just 3 strikeouts. They're finding places to put this kid in to let him play, and it's Cronin time down there. You know, look out for the Padres. And we've been on the NL West all season, but these guys are interesting here. So,
Yeah, he's on one of my fantasy teams, so I'm a big Cronenworth fan. How about series to watch this week? What do you got?
well, you know, I by the time this one happened, you know, we're already almost done with the one game, but I really like the idea of the Giants and the Dodgers. But that's not the main one that I really, as I clicked on the wrong button here, that one's going to be over by the time we get done with the show tonight. So I'm going to pick one from the weekend. And the one from the weekend that I'm going to take is give me the Rays and the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays, the Blue Jays are just attacking the Mariners right now. Last I looked was 9-3.
First inning, Jake Cronin.
Sorry.
And
right.
trying to pull out Cronin.
The Yankees switched or won their game, so I switched over to the Padres and Reds, and it decided the audio needed to come back. So
there you go. And it was Jake Cronin. Go figure. No, I just think that Toronto right now is just on fire, and going against the number 3 team, going against the number 2 team in that AL East. So it's going to be an interesting set of games Friday through Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going to also go Friday through Sunday in mine, and I'm also going to stay in the American League. Give me the Boston Red Sox and the Oakland Athletics, 2 teams right now in the playoffs. It's going to be a good one. Oakland's kind of sliding a little bit, so we will see what's going to happen there. Let's move on to power rankings, and I made fun of Robert last week because I had put in mine, and then we didn't have any big gaps. So I kept mine hidden, and still we didn't have a lot of gaps. We were pretty close on most of the teams. But I'm proud of you for finally putting the correct team at number 1, which might change after this week because the Dodgers won game 1 and currently are winning game 2. But so far, so good as far as the team that you picked at your number 1. I'll go through mine really quick. I do have the Dodgers dropping down to my 5 spot. They kind of had a bit of a rough week. They got swept by the Padres. I was trying to remember which team it was. But bounced back just fine. And again, they won the first game against the Giants and now leading here in the second one. I'm looking at the wrong thing. My number 4 team is the Tampa Bay Rays. I know they're currently not winning the division, but I think we dropped them a little bit too far after getting swept by Seattle. It was just a reactionary thing, so I moved them back up. The San Diego Padres, for me, you already talked about Cronenworth and how good he was. They did sweep the Dodgers. We're 9-1 on the homestand, even though they did help break Arizona's record and let Arizona win on the road. Give me the Houston Astros, who have been the hottest team in baseball at number 2. They have now pulled ahead of Oakland in the division. They've went 8-2 over their last 10. Just ridiculous. And then is the San Francisco Giants, first team to 50 wins. DeSclafani has been ridiculous. That offense has been so good. And now, because we put them at number 1, they can't stay at number 1 because no one ever does in our power ranking. So that's why they're losing to the Dodgers. But that's my top 5. What do you got?
I am right there with you. I had one team move up and I dropped one out just because of the way they played. But I moved the Dodgers all the way down to 5 from 1. They had a rough week, and to see them slip that far, even though Bellinger had a great week, huge numbers by Bellinger, but we expect that from him. But I do move him down. Insert back the Boston Red Sox, the AL East leading team. Boston has just looked really good. Number 3, no doubter for me. 3 of the NL West teams are up there. San Diego just playing lights out. Again, we talked about Cronenworth a minute ago, who was my player of the week, along with Tatis. Tatis has just been huge. You've got Machado there. That team just looks unbelievable. And then you hit it. Number 2 for me is Houston. They have just been red hot. They are looking good. I hope they can keep it somewhat mellow over the next couple of weeks, because Seattle's having a great push here. And yes, I know you're probably going to give me a little bit of crap about where I put Seattle in our power.
You almost put them top 10.
No, I did not have them top 10. I had them close.
You had them 11.
11.
Yeah, you almost had them top 10.
And then, no doubter, San Francisco, they have just looked really, really good. And you did hit it, first to 50 wins. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this series, short series this week, with the Dodgers. But there's going to be lots of games to play between the Dodgers, them, and San Diego over the next couple of months. And I just like that division right now.
Your MLB scoreboard in the book so far, the Mets ended up beating the Braves 4-3. Boston held off Kansas City, win that one 7-6. Sorry, Robert, but your Mariners lose to Toronto 9-3. The Phillies beat the Marlins 4-3. The Nationals beat the Rays 4-3. Just finishing, the Yankees beat the Angels 11-5, and the Tigers and Indians were postponed due to rain. Currently going on right now, in a very fun one, the Padres over the Reds 5-4 in the top of the seventh. Also in the top of the seventh inning, the White Sox over the Twins 7-3. You brought this one up a little bit earlier, but the Brewers still lead the Cubs 2-1 in the top of the seventh. Orioles and Astros are all knotted up at 3 in the seventh. The Cardinals 3, Diamondbacks 1 in the top of the seventh, but the Diamondbacks have the bases loaded with 2 out. Rockies all over the Pirates 8-0 in the eighth inning. A's over the Rangers 2-1 in the fourth, and after one inning, Dodgers 2, Giants 1. So
and
MLB scoreboard.
Randy, I do have, and I don't know if you said it or I wasn't paying attention. We have a no-hitter possible going on right now, as like you just said, Colorado leads 8-0 over the Pirates. So
I gotta switch over to that game now.
So it'll be interesting to see. And the other big one that we're getting ready to talk about college, but really quick, in game number 2, right now, Mississippi State leads 5-1 over Vanderbilt, bottom of the fourth.
And it is now through 8 innings. German Marquez, 8 no-hit innings. Your next week, it might have been too long. We will keep you up to date. He's only thrown 86 pitches. He has allowed the 1 walk. So it's not a perfect game, but he will be facing the 7, 8, and 9 hitters in the 9th inning, Will Marquez.
So one more before we move on to sports and to the college bun, and I wanted to throw this out. I said something to you before. How about the lady for fulfilling her Batgirl dreams for the Yankees 60 years later? She wrote a letter 60 years ago to go and be a Batgirl, and they sent her back a letter basically nicely saying they declined to let her play, and then she ended up framing this letter and putting it up, and her daughter found it and contacted the Yankees. They let her get in on June the 28th and was able to get in, and and to let her be the Batgirl throughout the first pitch. That is just cool. I mean, we're all about
the Yankees are America's team, and everyone loves them, and they just do great things.
I like it. Good. And the lady's named Gwen Goldman. If you have a chance, search her on Google and watch the video of what the Yankees did for her. That's awesome.
So I mentioned it earlier. We are in the College Baseball World Series. Vanderbilt up 1-0, trying to clinch it today, but Mississippi State not going away. Currently lead Vandy 5-1 in the bottom of the 4th inning. But the thing I want to talk about real quick, and we're tired of talking about that C word, but North Carolina State having to leave the tournament due to COVID protocols. We got really lucky with the NAIA and not having any team having to deal that way. Obviously, there were some COVID issues, but no team had to just leave the tournament because of it. How do you feel about what happened with North Carolina State?
I just feel so bad. I mean, of everything that's happened, even if we go back to NCAA March Madness and having forgive me, I don't remember the team that ended up having to get canceled out that moved on, but
Vanderbilt moved on because of North Carolina State.
Right, and you just feel so bad. But I'm talking back in March Madness. I don't remember the team that lost their spot and they ended up moving on. But
was Oregon that moved on? Who moved on?
Yeah, Oregon. I don't remember who it was, but it's just a really crappy situation to.
VCU had to forfeit to Oregon. I kind of remember.
Yeah, I mean, it feels so bad. You work hard after having such a shitty last year with COVID and not being able to participate, and all these kids do all they can to get here and do that, and just one person out of all of them get to the point and get around the wrong person and then passes it on. I feel so bad because these are college kids that probably will, how many were on the roster that will never have this opportunity again to play in a College World Series. So it sucks, but it is what it is. Maybe it's to the point that we start really pushing vaccines on everybody. We look at what I think I saw a number today that was like, I want to say 62% or something are now vaccinated. Americans are now vaccinated. Think about more people doing that.
We got plenty of that news to get to throughout the rest of the show, but let's move on to the NFL. And Demaryius Thomas from the Denver Broncos announcing his retirement this week. It's the question we have to ask every single time a good player retires. But Robert, is Demaryius Thomas a Hall of Famer?
He is not a first ballot, maybe 8 years down the road, but I don't see him being. I don't see him being even in the first few years. I don't see it.
If you don't believe a man should be on the first ballot, he shouldn't be on any ballot. I hate that. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's a Hall of Famer. No. If you think he's a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer. We don't need asterisks. Well, he didn't get in on the first ballot, but we still allowed him to get in. He was really, really good. And as a fantasy player, he was a standout player for fantasy teams every single year. He's not a Hall of Famer to me. And it's just longevity. Unfortunately, he had a lot of injuries and was unable to really get things going. Hasn't even played since 2019, where he only started 10 games for. Can you even name the team that he played for in 2019? Exactly.
I can't remember.
The New York Jets.
No.
He was a Jet in 2019. Had a whole 36 catches in 10 games. Finishes his career with just 724 catches, just shy of 10,000 yards, 63 touchdowns. He had a 4-year stretch that was fantastic for Denver, where he had at least 92 catches, and 3 of the 4 years he had double-digit touchdowns. Great career, fantastic player. He's not a Hall of Famer. And the fact that Robert's like, well, maybe in his 8th attempt he can be in the Hall of Fame. It's not how the Hall of Fame should work. It's yes or no.
Unfortunately, that's how it works too many of the times here anymore. So
And no, I just don't like it.
How about all 32 teams now go for full capacity at NFL stadiums? What do you think about that one?
Let's bring it. Listen, again, watching baseball stadiums be full. I've been a proponent of being safe during COVID times. You talked about the COVID or vaccine numbers going up, and we're getting to that herd mentality that all these doctors want to get to. I know we still need to be safe, and I'm totally with that. But man, it is so nice to see crowds full and hearing the crowd again. And NFL needs that more than I think any other sport. Basketball maybe too, when they get behind their team, but hearing the crowd, and especially in those stadiums that build that sound around, of course, the Seattle Seahawks come to mind for that. Kansas City Chiefs. I'm excited. You get us back to some sort of normalcy and getting people back in. I'm very, very, very excited.
And Indianapolis, Indianapolis being the last one to finally be. But they were the ones that hosted March Madness and all that area. Maybe the mayor was just trying to be extremely safe, but that comes through today. So
NFL also announced that they are going to start allowing throwback helmets again in 2022. That used to be a thing before the concussion protocols really took shape, and they wanted all of the players to only have one specific helmet. So they didn't want so many, because obviously they had to find the right ones that fit, and they thought finding other ones that you're only using 1 week might not fit as well. But with technology getting better, I think it's working out. I'm very, very excited for this, because there are some uniforms that have not been used since the mandates went down, and I'm ready to get back. So, Robert, my question to you, we do lists all the time on this show. I need your 3 throwback uniforms that you are excited to see come back next year.
I first started watching football, and it was Steve Largent, Dave Craig. Give me the old Seattle blue with the funky Seahawk emblem on it. That my number 3 one. Number 2 for me has to be Tampa Bay. That the buck head on it and all that. But you're gonna laugh. The uniform that stands out for me, not the away jersey, but the home jersey. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles green jersey. That was still, when you think about it, that's the one jersey. I see Ron Jaworski throwing in this jersey, and it is crazy of what it looks like. But the old throwback green ones.
Honorable mention for me to the New York Jets with their Titans jerseys with that weird bluish color and the yellow that they had going on for that. I dig that setup for the Jets back at their old Titan days. Also, shout out to there's the first hit in the top of the 9th inning for Jermaine Marquise. So no hitter is gone in the 9th inning. Thank you, Randy, for turning the game on. Also, shout out to the Green Bay Packers. Haley's going to hate this, but they had their crazy colored outfits that they threw back to like the 1940s, and had the brown helmets that signified the leather helmets that they had back then. I like the kookiness of it. But my top 3, the New England Patriots. You talked about the Buccaneers helmet. I did like the Patriots helmet with the old Patriot down in the hiking motion that they had in the 90s. I want to see that come back. I'm excited to see the Tennessee Titans bring back the old Houston Oilers logo and bringing back that bright blue color that they had going on with that. Stop breathing in your mic, Robert. And I'm with you. Creamsicles all the way for Tampa Bay. I want the creamsicles to come back, and again, those helmets were fantastic. So I'm with you with Tampa Bay.
I'm shocked that neither one of us picked, and maybe it's just because we see it usually once a year on Thanksgiving. But what about Detroit and the blue with the silver helmets?
Honestly, my number 1 was going to be the Chargers and their baby blues, but they basically brought those back in the forefront. So no, like the Thanksgiving Day stuff with like Dallas having the white rim around the star and like the white shoulder pads, it's not for me. Same with Detroit with just the plain silver helmets and stuff. It's not that fun. Quick, believe it or not, and actually there's one I put on here that I think I've asked before, but I just wanted to add some more stuff. What's happening?
There's not a lot of
basketball got done, so they're sending me highlights and it's playing automatically. I hate websites that automatically play videos and with sound. Can go to hell. I absolutely hate them so much. Quick, believe it or not, though, just to add some stuff in here. Believe it or not, the Cincinnati Bengals will finish with a better record than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes, Joe Burrows will have a fantastic season, and Ben Roethlisberger is going to be benched before halfway season.
That would be huge. I'm going to say no, but it's closer than most people think. Obviously, Robert thinks they will pass. I think I've asked this before, and I'm going to ask it multiple times throughout the season. Zach Wilson and the New York Jets will finish with a better record this season than Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. I'm excited to see what your coach can do. I want to see what he can do And so I'm excited. Yeah, I hate saying it. Give me the Jets.
I'm also going to say yes. It drives me nuts. Not that the fact that you look at odds, and this is where these questions came from. The odds for the Jets to win the AFC East is like 30-1, and I'm not arguing that. There's no chance they're winning the division. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are like 7-1 to win their division. They are not the Tennessee Titans or the Indianapolis Colts. People need to calm down. Trevor Lawrence is not going to come into the season start or in his career and go 11-6. Calm down. Couple other ones as far as the odds went. They didn't have them in fourth, but they had them close. Believe it or not, the New Orleans Saints will finish dead last in the NFC South.
I don't see them dead last. I think that they'll have God who. You look at that division. I think Atlanta is still going to be in the bottom there. It'll be interesting to see, but it's going to be. I think it'll be a lot closer this year of a division. You know, Brady will probably still have Tampa Bay out there well in front, but the next three will probably be extremely close.
I think Carolina's finishing second. You get Christian McCaffrey back. Sam Darnold, I think, is going to have a good year there. It's whether they can be ahead or not of Atlanta. I'm going to say no, just because I'm with you. I think Atlanta finishes last in that division. But it's going to be pretty close. I mean, I hope Jameis Winston has a good year, but he doesn't have the weapons around him like that Drew Brees used to have. And the last one, just for fun, the Seattle Seahawks will finish last in the NFC West. Believe it or not.
Yes.
All right, we move on. So everyone hates Robert Hagan.
I hate to say it, but I think yes. I mean, they didn't.
Stop it.
Okay,
No,
they didn't do anything.
You don't hate to say it. You love to say it.
Because I like to see if I can get any rouse out of the Seattle Seahawks fans. You know, especially they didn't do anything for really any off season. If they don't get things figured out with Russell Wilson, could it be towards the end of his career in Seattle? I know he said that he wants to be there his entire time, but I just don't see it happening. They're going to finish last.
I'm going to say no, because they always find a way, and I hate it. I think Arizona finishes last in that division, but they finished third. It's going to be close. All right, you are listening to the R&R Sports Report right here on Facebook and YouTube. Again, thank you guys so much for getting us over the 500 mark. We haven't come up with the 600 mark one yet, but we got time, so don't you worry. Again, it is the 4th of July this weekend. It's also my son's birthday this weekend, and I hate the fact that I will be the father of a teenager come Saturday. It makes me feel really old. It's brutal. I can't. And the fact that every day he brings up the fact that, hey, next year I can start learning how to drive. And in a couple of years, I'll be a high schooler. And in this many years, it's going to be like, just shut up and just calm down. I can't handle.
Be a kid, grow up a little bit, just kind of just enjoy the time.
Stop making me feel so damn old. All right, but I want to bring up, again, we love lists here at the R&R Sports Report. It's our thing. We need to come up with other games, but I'm unoriginal. So lists are the way we go here on this show. So I want your top 3 patriotic sports moments. And again, if you're listening along now, or if you're listening later, let us know in the comments below what your favorite patriotic sports moments are. And we're going to go back and forth on this one. I don't want all straight 3. But Robert, give me your number 3.
My number 3, and just because I was younger and I remember it was one of the first memories I ever had of the Olympics, and I have to say it, Miracle on Ice when Team USA beat the Soviet Union 4-3 in the 1980 Winter Olympics. So that was the first real Olympics I ever remember, and it was just crazy to see the newspaper articles, to see the Sports Illustrated of when that happened. It was like I did like the two heavyweight boxers going at it, and to see this team come out and win, it was just unbelievable.
My number three is kind of a more broad moment, but Pat Tillman, when he decided to leave the NFL and go into the military, we all know the story of what happened afterwards and the friendly fire and everything there. But the ultimate sacrifice he took when he didn't have to. I mean, obviously there are stories like this back in the 50s and 60s and stuff when a lot more of the athletes were headed off to war and stuff. But in a day and age when sports athletes are making so much money. I mean, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you weren't making a lot of money. So you weren't leaving this luxurious life behind to go into the military. You're still making an ultimate sacrifice, and full respect for that. But what Pat Tillman did is just amazing. So that is my number three. What about your number two?
And I could easily put that one in there. It skips your mind every once in a while, but easily Pat Tillman, probably one of the most decorated people that I would ever put in, want somebody to watch and how to be one of those human beings and be an American. So huge props to him. God rest his soul. But I know you don't quite understand why I did this one, but
no, I don't.
And the reason why I picked this one was it was right after 9/11, and I picked the game on September 19th, 2001, when the Mariners clinched the division, the AL West, and that was 2 days after they had started games back up, and to get back to playing after being off for an entire week because 9/11 and everything going on. And for them to clinch, they all come back out. Mark McLemore, Mike Cameron come out. They grab the American flag. They walk around Safeco Field, and you can see it in the eyes of the players. The excitement to get back out there, to be in the ball field again in front of some unbelievable fans, but to grab the American flag and hoist it well high by both of those men on a time when we sat by our TVs and we watched things happen. It was nice to see a change of, we're getting back to a little bit of normalcy. Granted, it might not be a big memory to some people, but for a Mariner fan to see these two men that was in that 2001 season, 2000 season, 1999 season, when they were all together, how they played, it just still to this day, I watched that video and I've seen that video, and it still gives me chills to see them walk around the field with that and that. So for me, that's got to be number two.
And you're still a homer for it.
Yes, I am. I won't change my mind.
My number two is a little bit out there as far as the normal sports that we talk about here. And your parents, if they're listening, are going to turn off the show because of it. So I apologize to them. But listen, the WWE were the first grouping to get back together after 9/11. They usually filmed their SmackDowns at the time on Tuesday nights. Obviously, that's right when all of this started happening, so they postponed it. They came back Thursday, had SmackDown on live, and they had Lillian Garcia, who was the ring announcer at the time, sing the national anthem. And anybody that's watched wrestling and heard her voice and how good she is, her rendition was so emotional and so wonderful. You had all of the wrestlers out there on the ramp, most of them in tears over it. The stadium was full. You had Vince McMahon talking about how George Bush at the time had said we need to get back to normalcy, and that's what we're doing, and we're trying to get there. So for that to be the first big return to sports action and how powerful that was, it is a big reason why it is probably the number one SmackDown moment of all time. And if you aren't a wrestling fan and you have not seen that, like Robert has said about the Seattle Mariners stuff, go out of your way, go see it. It's fantastic. And you're number one, sir.
My number one was again. It comes off of one of the biggest life events ever for either one of us. You and I have known each other a long time, and we set a lot of things based on our experiences and our scene in our lifetimes. I remember when the shuttle blew up. We know where you were at certain days. And this one for me, I knew where I was at. I watched it, and it was huge. And I have to say, it was when they finally played the Olympics in 2002 at Salt Lake City, and it was the opening ceremony, and they packed out. Team USA packs out the flag that was on the ground from the World Trade Center, and they were going to demolish it. They were going to get rid of it, burn it, and they ended up holding onto this flag that was found in the rubble 2 days later. And Team USA walks out during the opening ceremonies of the Olympics in Salt Lake City, and to have the national anthem holding that torn flag, that ripped flag. It is a 3-minute video of one of the most emotional things to ever come across. And I think that by far, we went through a lot in that time, and still to this day, we think about 9/11. Being a teacher, we talk about 9/11 a lot, because now the students that I teach were not even born at that time. So, and to deal with that. So
Robert gets a visitor. My number one is, I think, the number one on a lot of people's list. I posted this question just a few minutes ago on the W2M Network Facebook chat group, and Eric Watkins, who is a constant commenter on our show, said the exact same thing. And it's George W. Bush throwing the first pitch at Yankee Stadium during the World Series, when the Yankees were taking on the Diamondbacks. And there's a small 30 for 30 that is on this exact moment. And the fact that he was warming up in the underground bullpen, and Derek Jeter walked by and asked him if he was going to pitch from the mound or not. And the president asked him what he should do, and Jeter said, you should throw it from the mound, but if you throw it in the dirt, you're going to get booed. The fact that we're going to have this fantastic moment in New York shortly after 9/11, and what was it, Game 3 of the World Series, with the president on the mound, and Jeter is still believing that the New York crowd would have booed the president if he threw it into the ground. It's just funny to me, but no, he threw an absolute strike. That whole moment is just fantastic. Even though the Yankees lose that World Series in 7, to me, that is still the greatest World Series of all time. Not only the emotional impact of it after everything that happened on 9/11, not only that New York was in it and they were the fan favorites for the first time in forever, because people were like, all right, New York, we're going to root for you this one year. All right. But then you had Schilling and Randy Johnson putting up gems. You had the Yankees coming back in back-to-back games in games 4 and 5. Just what a fantastic series, topped off by the George W. Bush pitch. And Harry from WTM Network, also in the chat, says the home run of Piazza, the walk-off home run, I believe the first game back for the New York Mets, their first home game after 9/11, was his, even though it did come against his Atlanta Braves, he says. Which, again, it just shows you, maybe it's just our age, but 9/11 impacted us greatly, and all of the moments wrapped around that.
So I think, for us, maybe we need to do this, and we'll put it out there, because we want to know your guys's too. So here's what I will suggest. I think Randy and I, what we'll do is we'll each look up ours, and we'll maybe attach a video to our Facebook page. Here's our moment, our number 2 moment, number 3 moment, number 1 moment, and just let us know in your comments, and we'll share our feelings of what happened in that moment. With these videos, from mine sharing Team USA to the Mariners walking the flag around. There are big moments in the history, and we'll try to get those posted here in the next couple of days of our top 3 patriotic sports moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to know your guys' as Robert says, and I like that idea. We'll post it out. It's a friendly reminder of what we need to be focusing on when we get up to the 4th of July. And obviously, we're all going to do the family stuff or the friend stuff. Hopefully, people in the Northwest give up on this fireworks thing. Good God, we do not need all the fires. Please be safe out there. Don't burn down the country, please. That's all I ask.
My computer is still showing 110 degrees. We're at 8:15 in the evening, 110 degrees right now, still in the LC Valley.
That's so gross. And we're not going to get rain for months, it feels like.
Yeah.
So just, again, have a safe 4th of July, please, and thank you. But again, we're going to be posting our favorite moments that we just talked about on the Facebook page throughout the rest of the week, and would love to hear from you guys. But right now, Robert has a fun little, I guess not fun, but he has a little story to talk about from local sports.
Yeah, only really one local sports, as everything has kind of come to a halt, especially in Washington, as we wrapped up with basketball a couple weeks ago. And this one comes from your side of the river, Randy. Lewiston High School announced the other day, Davey Steele, the Lewiston High School baseball coach, has resigned after his 6th year. He goes with a record 84-48. He did lead the Bengals to 4 Idaho State 5A state tournaments. He is still going to continue to be the assistant coach for the Lewiston Bengals. When he was asked about why he was resigning, he does talk about his workload as it did change at the high school. He now teaches a video production, a videography class, among many things, and also being school advisors on a couple of different clubs. Right now, they also say that Brent Jacobs is resigned also from his position as LHS baseball coach. And right now, according to Corey Williams, nobody has. They are going to take their time into trying to find somebody to fit this piece. So maybe Randy, maybe you should apply and coach your alma mater.
I did a little league coaching. That was enough for me. Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know if coach is in my future. And Eric, don't worry about it. We started a little late due to my lengthy interview process that I had, and Robert not wanting to go solo. So no worries on being late. We still appreciate you hanging out with us. NBA update. The Atlanta Hawks have evened the series even without Trae Young today, and Giannis gets hurt from Milwaukee, so we'll see what happens there. That series all tied up at 2, as on the West side, the Clippers survive and push that series to a Game 6. The Mavericks had a chance at home to push themselves, not the Mavericks, what am I talking about? The Phoenix Suns. It's still 100 degrees and my brain is fried. The Phoenix Suns had a chance to push themselves into the NBA Finals, could not do it. So we will see that game tomorrow night. I wanted to bring up some WNBA news just for the fact that, we haven't done a lot of NBA stuff here. And I think we need to. And mostly for the point that Diana Taurasi has become the first WNBA player to reach 9,000 points, which is very, very cool to set records. Is she the greatest WNBA player of all time?
I think so. She's just fun to watch. Just what she can do with the basketball, and dribbling it, driving to the hoop, playing back, shooting a long shot. She's fun to watch, and I think she would be a huge asset as soon as she gets to the point of retiring to become a coach or assistant coach somewhere of one of these teams. So.
Also, we were talking about vaccinations earlier in the show, and how NFL stadiums are all 32 teams now will be fully open. Really cool report out of the WNBA: 99% of the league's players are fully vaccinated. So I stand up and applaud, getting the job done. I don't care if you like vaccinations or not. Who cares? It's very cool to see people going out of their way and trying to get us back to normal. Really interesting. I didn't even realize this was a thing until I saw the report yesterday. But the 4 members of the inaugural 3-on-3 women's basketball competition have been announced for the Tokyo Olympics. We'll be talking about Olympics and our favorite events. This might be one of them. I like the 3-on-3 basketball league that Fox Sports was putting on. I thought that's always fun. So get the women involved. Your 4 members of that team: the Chicago center, Stephanie Dolson; your Dallas guard, Alicia Gray; the Las Vegas guard, Kelsey Plum; and the Seattle forward, Katie Lou Samuelson, are your 4 members of the women's team. So check that out when the Tokyo Olympics gets going. And some standings of note that I put down for anybody that has not watched any WNBA like myself. Your Seattle Storm are leading the league with 12-4 record. The Las Vegas Aces are at 11-4. The Kinetic Sun at 10-5, and then I had to put the Indiana Fever are 1-15. So maybe that's the team I need to root for, because all I root for are teams that suck.
Well, we'll get it. You'll have a little bit of praise a little bit later with your AFL team. But yeah, I have watched a couple of Seattle Storm games here while we bowled over the last couple of weeks. They just look really good. I mean, they like to push the ball. They could easily be in the Final Four of this ball game or this season. I'm excited now that school's about done for me, so I can focus a little bit more time on just watching lots of sports and staying up on stuff. But I think that's where I go. I watch a little bit more women's NBA.
Yeah, I'm with Eric. Get the big 3 in the FIBA 3x3 together, unify some rules, and let's have some fun with that. I think it'd be great. Your NHL playoffs are now in the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 1 was yesterday. Tampa Bay completely dominated in that game. I'm sorry, Eric. I know you hate the Lightning right now. But they went out with 5-1. They're able to jump out to a 2-0 lead. They put up 3 in the third inning, third period, to run away with it. And Nikita Kucherov with 2 goals in the game. He's been fantastic in the playoffs. Game 2 will be tomorrow. Robert, how have the Shock been doing?
Oh, the Shock had a Friday night game this last week, and they come up on the wrong end of the Arizona Rattlers, who are leading in the IFL, and lose this one 56-35. The Shock did lead after the first quarter, 14-7, and then trailed at half, 30-28. But Charles McCollum, he was 9-17, 108 yards, 1 passing TD. But I think the bigger thing for me is watching what that Shock's defense did. They just shut down all of a sudden. When you give up 188 yards rushing, yes, 188 yards rushing in the IFL, Indoor Football League, to the quarterback Drew Powell, you get 3 touchdowns with them, and he just looks unbelievable. And so the Shock end up now 4-2 on the year. They're still 3rd place in the IFL, so they're not going anywhere quite yet. They do have a game this coming week. I've seen a couple of things change. I'm wondering if it did change to a later date, but the last game I saw scheduled, they were supposed to travel to Louisville to take on the Extreme on Saturday at 5:05 our time Pacific. But it'll be interesting to see if that game happens, because I did see a calendar that they were going to play in late August instead. So we'll try to keep that posted. But Randy, the wife said we got to look at the schedule and see when we're going to go. They do have a couple of games coming up week after next and the week after that. So quick score update. Yeah, quick score update from Omaha. Mississippi State leads Vandy 8-1 at the end of the 8th inning. And so
bring on game 3.
Yeah, but bring on game 3.
As it should be. All right, let's get into those sports that don't get enough airtime, and boy, do we have a lot of them. Let's start with the Tour de France. which is a sport that I was expecting to talk about on this when we started this radio show. And it only gets mentioned here because on day one, there was a ridiculous wreck. I sent the video to Robert when I saw it. It was completely insane. And it's all caused by some girl that's holding a sign. It's in some other language, but from what I've been told, it's basically telling her grandmother hi. And she holds it out over the road while hundreds of bikers are coming down this little roadway. And she hits one of the lead bikers and just creates this domino effect of just bikers rolling over each other. It took them, 20 minutes to finally clear out of all that. Obviously, it had to have caused ridiculous issues as far as the timing goes, as the leaders had taken off. So do we need more or less of this in the Tour de France? Because it's the only reason I'm watching it. However, having the fans that close to the roadway just seems like a dumb idea.
I think it's a dumb idea. I mean, it's exciting to finally get people out and watching things like this, but it's a little scary to think of what if somebody is out that close and gets hit and just totally like this happened. I mean, it was what they say, 20 or 30 people total got hurt. And so you look
at least one that I saw had to completely leave the race. We're not going to be able to complete day 2. There could have been a couple others after that. Just a messy situation in an event that already has enough bad news that comes out of it every single year. Let's go to Wimbledon, which started today. And I was actually at my mom's house, and we were watching a little bit of this while we were catching up and trying to stay out of the heat. And Serena Williams was forced to retire. She slipped on the grass in the 6th game. Tried to play through it, went back with the doctor, tried to play the next game, and you could tell she was in great pain. Is trying to serve with tears in her eyes, and then slips again, trying to push forward to get a return, and ends up having to retire. Just really, really, really sad moment. There was another injury of a male player who was facing Roger Federer. He slips as well and injures his knee. What is happening? Are we just not used to playing outdoors in the grass anymore? Is it because it's day 1 and we haven't really worked down the grass and started to beat in the path? What's going on at Wimbledon?
Well, from what I've seen just with reading and looking in, and I was moved the same way. You get the alert that says Serena Williams has to withdraw from, and it's like, what's going on? You look, and by this time when you and I look, it's already like 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in London, and at that time you look and it was already light showers. So I'm wondering, are the courts just that? Did I not get tarped well? How is that handled with all that? What about the staffing? Because Wimbledon didn't happen last year, so I mean, it was a little interesting. So maybe the crews they're newbies. There's a lot of things, but how can 2 different people, same thing basically happen, kind of tweak after sliding?
And honestly, it could just be freak stuff. We will see how it goes throughout the rest of the tournament. But just really, really sad for Serena. I'm wanting her to get that next Grand Slam, and she's been close many times. And you could tell how much it affected her, and she wanted to play through it and just couldn't. And again, watching that live over at my mom's house was just rough to see. So hopefully she makes a speedy recovery, and we will go from there. Let's get into some Aussie rules football, because hopefully Eric is still hanging out. I was hoping he would hang out during this moment, and I've already made Robert go crazy with his microphone. But Eric called it. Geelong beat Western, and he said, "Don't worry, Brisbane will come out and take care of you." And what was that first quarter, Robert?
31-1, I think, when I texted you, and I said I can't watch anymore. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, but you come out 31-1 in the first period, and there was just no fire out of this team. And so I decided, I only watched one quarter and that's it. So
That's all you really needed to watch. Brisbane ends up winning that game in 94-50. Another game that was really, really surprising to me. Richmond, who I keep saying is in my top 4, and I keep waiting for them to get into this groove. They're definitely running out of time. They lose to St. Kilda, and that's not the thing that really surprises me. They lost 62-22. Where did the offense go? We're talking about games that hit hundreds.
yeah, I mean,
And they scored 22 points.
yeah, if you looked at most of the matches this week, a lot of them were very low scoring from what we're used to seeing. You hate to say certain things are going on, but a lot of people, it is the change of weather. Maybe these guys are starting to feel the effects of being a little chilly. I just watching your game. I actually was able to record your game. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But seeing some of the fans in the stands, they're all bundled up with huge scarves on and snow jackets already. And I'm thinking,
because it's like 60 degrees over there.
Yeah.
Altitude. No, I don't know what it is over there. It's definitely not what we're having over here.
no.
For sure. It's hot. It's hot in the Pacific Northwest. When I message my friend from Australia and tell her how hot it is over here, and she goes, "Yeah, no, thank you." From Australia, so it's ridiculous.
My cousin,
I'm going to keep crying about it.
My cousin's the same way. I have a cousin that lives in South Savannah, Georgia, and he was talking about it, and he saw my post from last night of it being 110 at 10 o'clock, and he's like, "Well, I won't complain about it being 84 degrees over here on the coastline." I'm like, he says, "I'm going to scratch Clarkston off of my visit list." I said, "Oh, it's great to visit. Just got to make sure you know what months to come and visit."
Yeah, a couple month window you have for sure. Fremantle, who is doing their best to try to get into that top 8, get the big upset against Sydney, 81-71. So that was a big game for them. And how about this? I was really worried. It was the Thursday night when I saw that North Melbourne was able to get their second win of the year. They beat Gold Coast 72-63, which made them only 2 points behind my Hawthorn Hawks as they try to get out of that wooden spoon position. And what does Hawthorn do? They look like a legit team again. This time, I am not going to believe that this is the start of a run because that failed me last time. But they look good. They have some youngsters on this team that are really starting to figure some things out. And I wanted to put this down in the notes. But there was the mark of the year in this game and a highlight that Robert needs to post on our Facebook just to get people that don't watch Aussie Rules into it. Jumping on this dude's shoulder, almost kneeing his teammate in the face, going up to get this mark was a fantastic moment and a big win for the Hawks as they stay 6 points ahead of that wooden spoon position.
Yeah, I rewatched it. Like I said, it was one of the games on FS1 FS2 this week, and rewatched it, and I had to stop it, rewind it, and show the wife, and we watched it how high he got up in the air for a unbelievable mark. But
I watched that so many times.
Your team looked really good. I mean, GWS come out in the first quarter, and when I saw in the first quarter, I thought, "Uh-oh, it's going to be another game like my game." And then all of a sudden, the second quarter, Hawthorn just looked unbelievable. They played the short game, lots of hand passes, which was unbelievable. They were able to move the ball, break the defense, and some really on the move goals that happened for Hawthorn. It was an enjoyable game to sit and watch the entire game.
Yeah, that's what I fell in love with Aussie Rules is when teams get into that groove and get that ball movement going. And when I really got into Aussie Rules, obviously getting talked to it by a Hawthorn fan, so I became a Hawthorn fan. And watching them during that time where they won 3 in a row, and that was their bread and butter, is how well they were able to move the ball in the midfield and find that open grass to have opportunities for set shots. And that's the beauty of that game. We talk about the big hits and the crazy collisions and stuff, but there is so much strategy and beauty in that game that still people that don't watch that sport very often get to see. And we saw a little bit of that with Hawthorne. We'll see what happens next. Unfortunately, next week, I don't know why, but you don't get much in America if you want to watch Aussie rules football. In fact, you get one game. You get Uno game on Fox Sports 2 on Friday at 2:30 a.m. Pacific time. It is the Geelong Cats taking on Essendon. I'll give you that. It should be a pretty good game, but I'm a little disappointed. We got some good games this week. Melbourne and GWS should be good. Brisbane and Adelaide both trying to get battle for that top 8 spot. Should be fun to see. Hawthorne's probably going to get smoked by Port Adelaide. That's just how it's going to work. And I am a big Bulldog fan this week as the Western Bulldogs take on those Roos from North Melbourne. I need Western to not completely fall apart because I need North Melbourne to lose and stay. I don't want the wooden spoon. That's all I want. So I am with Eric this week, rooting for the Bulldogs. Golf this week, sir. I didn't get to watch a lot of this. What a crazy Sunday.
It was an unbelievable Sunday, and the entire week, I sat and was able to watch. School got out early on. I'm done by noon on Thursday, so I was able to watch a fair amount of golf, and the players just looked really good. Bubba Watson, oh dude, he was hitting shots left, right. The only thing for me is the scores were not super high. They were actually lower than what they have been in the past there.
How about Bubba Watson hitting a 300-yard drive without the head of his driver?
That was crazy. Friday, and I did post that video Friday. I think I want to say it was like hole 6. It was on Friday. It was his second round. He hits it, and the head just went almost probably close to 100 yards. Still, how he was able to make contact and that ball traveled 300 yards. It was crazy. But Bubba he looked really good, and then all of a sudden on Saturday or Sunday, it just was not his. They talked about it even in the telecast. They were talking that he becomes a defensive putter on Sundays. If he's got the lead, he becomes very defensive. But that course has been very good to Bubba. He's won three times there. You would have figured after Friday he would have been the main favorite to go and win that one. DeChambeau just didn't have much going. He was struggling a lot, but Bubba 4 bogeys, a double bogey in the final 5 holes. But I think it was more interesting between Kramer Hickok and Harris English. 8 holes in the playoff, and I watched every one of the holes in the playoff. They played 18. Yeah, they played 18. I want to say 6 times, and it was just crazy to watch them, and for them to be par for 7 of those holes, and they were hitting long putts. So, for me, these 2 young guys, I'm excited to see where they go in their career. I mean, golf is getting younger, and I love the reason because of this.
At what point in a PGA playoff, how many holes would they have let them go before they instituted the new Mario Golf rules? Where you start at the tee time, they say 3, 2, 1, go. You hit the ball, you grab your bag, and you run your ass down to your ball. And whoever gets it in the hole first wins. Every time you hit the ball, it adds 30 seconds to your time. When do we get that in the PGA? That's the playoff I want to see.
Well, Bryson DeChambeau won't be that person because he has to pull out his book and look at his book every time.
Right.
But no, I mean, it was unbelievable watching that. I think they said that they figured there was like 30 minutes more light that they probably would have let them go because of where things were.
What did they do at that point? It's a tie?
Well, and that's the thing.
The next day? Eric, I'm not cut out for speed golf, all right? But I just want to watch it.
So listen, Eric. So when we have a golf and bowling tournament coming up here, the second week in August, we will make sure that we uh, film us out there on the golf
Oh,
course and in
God.
the
I don't
bowl.
want people to see my golf shot. I gotta hit it. Can it not be 180 degrees outside tomorrow? I need to go practice.
Yeah, well,
Oh no. But
we've got
yes, we will get some film.
we've got 6 weeks before that tournament. That's on August
Saturday,
14th.
I forget.
So yeah, August 14th in golf and bowling tournament. Yeah, I like that format. I mean, all right. Do you give them a cart or do they have to run it?
No, you gotta run.
Yeah.
Absolutely run. Your next tournament is the Rocket Mortgage Classic at the Detroit Golf Club. Joel Damon will be in this tournament. I promise. I said last week he was going to be in the tournament. I don't know what lineup I was looking at or if something changed, but he did not play last week. He will play this week, even though flights were trying to mess him up and his flights got canceled and his bags were on a different flight and things got crossed up. Go check out his Twitter. He had an adventure trying to get to the golf course, but he will tee off at 4:25 Pacific time. It'd be what 6:20. Is Detroit Eastern time or
Central.
time?
They're
So it'd
central.
be 6:25 local time over there, and he will be playing with Martin Trainer and Ryan Armour, teeing off of the first tee. So he will be playing. I promise this time.
So I want to know though, you hear all of his comments that he makes back and forth, and if you follow him on Twitter, he is funny to follow on Twitter. But him and Max Homa, are they really good buddies, or are they really? Because he's blaming part of his luggage besides Southwest that it's Max Homa's fault.
And usually, with when they're outright blaming somebody, usually it's because they're buddies and they're flipping each other crap. But we might have to get to the bottom of that story.
Yeah,
Investigative journalism at its best is what we need to bring here on the Sports Report. Let's move on to NASCAR, sir, because we had a Pocono doubleheader, one race on Saturday, one race on Sunday. I told you I hate these races. I hate Pocono. But I said at the beginning of the show, I'll say it again. Hats off to Pocono. 2 fun races, 2 interesting endings. Though Saturday really only became interesting because of the last lap. Kyle Larson looking like he's going to win his 4th in a row, continue his domination, blows the left front tire going into the last turn. I believe that a lapped car was told to throw something out of the car because NASCAR did not want him to win 4 in a row. He still finishes 9th. Alex Bowman, his teammate, ends up winning, so Hendrick Motorsports continues their dominance at this point. But race number 2 was it for me because fuel strategy was so important in this race. Even though usually you get to the end of a stage and everyone comes down and pits and tops off and gets new tires. With Pocono, usually there's less caution flags, so teams will get on these different strategies. And even with those in-stage cautions, they stay on their strategy. And it played out on this one where you had a group of guys who pitted at that last or stage 2 caution, and there was no way they're going to make it to the end of the race. There were people that pitted at the last caution of the race and could barely make it if they saved some fuel. Kyle Busch, whose transmission was all sorts of messed up. He went to the point where he was singing in the car. He loved his car so much to having to hold on to dear life to that gear shift to keep it into 4th gear or it would slip out, to not being able to get it out of 4th gear. They had somebody in his car during a pit stop trying their best to get it out of 4th gear, were then penalized and had to come back down and pit to recover up their gearbox because they tore a bunch of stuff out and it was a safety hazard to leave that opening in case there was a fire. So he had all of this going on, but because of that, he pitted later than anyone else, was still on the lead lap. And throughout the whole race, what I loved about it was you had Alan Vespic, I think, was the pit crew guy that they had on there a lot. And he was breaking down all of these different strategies. And you have these guys sitting in 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they can make it. And the top 7, they all pitted within 2 laps of each other. They might make it. So any of these 10 guys could win, and going over that every lap, bunch of guys could not make it, either ran out of fuel or decided to pit before they did. And Kyle Busch on one gear ends up winning the race. And because of that, it was very, very entertaining just for how insane the circumstances were. I still hate Pocono. But did you get to watch any of these races, Robert?
I didn't get to watch any of Sunday stuff. I ended up, I think that is the best one. I bowled. It was last weekend of the bowling tournament here in the Valley, so I missed that. But just watching the race on Saturday was crazy to watch the dominance of what we've talked about NASCAR over the last few weeks of how it has been Team Hendricks and how it has been Kyle Larson. What do these teams have to do to get better than these guys? I mean, I don't know how can we slow down Kyle Larson? That's my question, and like you said, maybe somebody threw something out the window and sliced a tire. How do you that's the only thing
My
you can think of.
conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Your next race will be on July 4th at the Road America, which will be the first time the big series will go there. Another road course. I'm all for it. Let's finish things off here for the this weekend. Or why are we on this week in sports history? Who clicked on that? Did I click on that?
I didn't.
Sports that do not get enough airtime. I might have clicked on that. Who knows? 2020 Summer Olympics are coming soon. July 23rd? Get 6 more sports added, which will be fun. You get karate, skateboarding of all things, just because X Games used to be popular, so now let's get it into Olympic sports. Sport climbing, I think, is my favorite sport that is coming for the first time. That's going to be a lot of fun. Surfing is coming, and then you get baseball and softball, who are returning. Hello. Robert asked the question.
Yeah, I asked the question.
Favorite event in the Summer Olympics for me is what I love about the Winter Olympics is curling. It's the only time I ever watch that sport, but I will watch it for days on the Winter Olympics. For the Summer Olympics, the exact same thing. It's the one sport I don't watch any other time, but I'll watch a bunch of it during these Olympics, and that's gymnastics. Just the craziness that those men and women are able to do out there, whether it's on the floor routines or all the different events they have on there. But it's that event that my jaw is just on the floor for most of the event. What about you?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Winter Olympics. I love curling. I love the ski jump. That's the other one. But for me, for Summer Olympics, and maybe it's because I grew up watching it, but I love watching them do diving. I'm a huge diver, whether it's springboard or platform diving. Grew up watching, Greg Louganis and him diving into the pool. I just think those two are fun. And I do love water polo. But really, there isn't anything in the summer one that I don't dislike. I mean, they've added some sports over the last
one that I dislike. Swimming has 107 different events. So then you get Michael Phelps, who's won 47 gold medals, but it's because he was in 10 events in the same year. Eric did say handball, women's high jump, distance running, and the race walk. I love the race walk. Just the weird shuffling that they have to do. I love it. It's great. Speaking of diving, did you see in the U.S. Olympic trials the 14-year-old who is trying out for the Olympics? I think it was 14.
I have not seen that one.
Very, very cool to watch as long as you keep it on mute. The commentators, I think, made jokes that he was so young on every dive. Just admire how good he was. And let's not freak out that he was 14 years old every 2 seconds. It got really, really tired. But yeah, I'm excited for the Olympics to come back and to watch events that I usually do not watch. But sir, it is now time for this week in sports history.
This week in sports history, we have a fair amount of them. We might be able to get to most of them today. So let's see how this goes. 1894, the International Olympic Committee is founded at Sorbonne, Paris, at the initiative of Baron Pierre in Paris. 1917, Ernie Shore enters the game after Boston Red Sox pitcher Babe Ruth is ejected for throwing a punch at an umpire. When you know, then Ernie Shore retires all 26 batters that he faced and wins that game 4-0. 1922 British Open Men's Golf Royal St. George, and that is going to be coming up very soon. I can't wait for the Open to be happening overseas. No relation, Walter Hagen becomes the first American-born winner in the Open Championship, and then 2 years later, he won his second one in 1924. 1922, American Professional Football Association is renamed to the NFL. 1947, future Baseball Hall of Famer Jackie Robinson steals home for the first time of 19 times in his career, stealing home. Who would have figured a baseball player would steal home 19 times? And
It's not going to happen now.
No, it will never happen. I don't think it'll ever happen again. 1961, Cubs' Ernie Banks ends his 717 consecutive games played streak. In 1977, Willie Stargell hits his 400th career home run and finishes his career with 475. 1981. This is still before your time and before my time, but it's crazy to think about this game in what we call the modern era. But the longest professional baseball game happens. Pawtucket Red Sox finally beat the Rochester Red Wings 3-2 in 33 innings with 8 hours and 25 minutes of playing time. Only 8 hours and 25 minutes. 32 innings. Of which were played in April 18th and 19th, 1981 at McCoy Stadium. And then the 33rd inning was played on June 23rd, 1981. So you span it over 3 games, and it is just crazy. 1983, Don Sutton becomes the 8th pitcher to strike out 3,000 batters. 1987, Don Baylor sets career high hit by pitch mark of 244. That is now 4th all time. He ends up 4th all time with 267 hit by pitches in 19 seasons. And I know I hate bringing this person up, but he's part of baseball history. But Barry Bonds in 2003 steals second base against the LA Dodgers, become the first player and only player with 500 career home runs and 500 steals.
What's wrong with Barry Bonds?
No, he's a part of that asterisk whole era too. 2007, Craig Biggio of the Houston Astros becomes the 27th member of the 3,000 hit club, going 5 for 5 against the Rockies, and finishes his career with 3,060 hits. And there, there's only 32 players on that list. So, and yes, go ahead and say it. I am a homer. I'm going to put in a homer stat. In 2008, Felix Hernandez of the Seattle Mariners hits a grand salami against the New York Mets, the first pitcher to do so since Steve Dunning in 1971.
As a wrestling fan, I'm like, you want to slam me? What are you talking about? And on a personal note, we just got to give it a shout out. A little late. Eric Watkins was born this week in sports.
Yes, he was.
He says he shared his birthday with Ernie Shore, Rick Wise, and Ryan Sandberg. So happy late birthday to Eric. All right, sir.
His birthday was Wednesday. Yeah, his birthday was Wednesday. I was going to say something last Tuesday, and I totally spaced it because I asked him if he was watching. So, no, I'm pretty proud of you. Last week, you got 3 of the 4. So I was darn proud of you. You were good.
You got this time.
I actually have a few of them. And so we might have some time to get through all of them. I'm going to start with the hit by pitches one. Who leads being hit by a pitch?
That's Biggio.
I will give you that, but it's not right. I am going to give you that. No. He is the modern era.
But he cares about the older era.
He was hit 285 times in his career. That is technically second place, but first place. And you and I talked about it. It was a totally different ball game prior to
Yeah.
1890s, 90s. But Hugh Miller was plunked 287 times. His last time he was hit was in 1903. So they just threw at him. So, but the other names on the list that really made me, third place was Tommy Tucker, 272. Again, Don Baylor is fourth, but number 5 is Jason Kendall with 254 times. So it's kind of crazy with that one.
Pirates catcher. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's a win. That's a win.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it to you. The other one, how many pitchers have struck out at least 3,000 batters?
I know the last one.
I bet you know the last one. Did I skip over that one? I might have skipped over that one.
No, you talked about 3,000 hits.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on who you said now. Sutton was the one.
Mhm.
Oh God, Sutton was 83. How many did you say were on the hit club?
Hit by pitch club
was 30. No, the 3,000 hit club was 32. It's not that many.
Yeah, how many pitchers have struck out at least 3,000 batters?
Okay, 8 was 1983. There hasn't been a ton. 16.
Very close, 18. But I guarantee you, I can guarantee you can name the top 3. If you can't name the top 3, you are done.
I'm done. We're ending the show with Nolan Ryan.
Nolan Ryan has won.
So I keep wanting to go old, but I have to say Roger Clemens.
He is number 3.
Is it older or newer?
Newer.
Okay, then Randy Johnson.
It is correct. Good job. Nolan Ryan had 50.
Between Tom Seaver and Don Sutton, and they're way up there. Cy Young, I'm sure maybe they have enough strikeouts. He had all the wins and stuff, but he played so much. So I was between 4.
Yeah,
and once you said new, then it was easy.
Yeah, Nolan Ryan was 5,700, and I'm just estimating Roger Clemens was 46, almost 4,700, and Randy Johnson was almost 4,900.
Sweet. Look at that. I'm on a roll. All right, so that's going to do it for this R&R Sports Report. Once again, he was unable to stop me for the most part. It's close enough on the one. I got the other 2 right. That's a win.
That is a win.
Once again, happy birthday to Eric last week. Happy birthday to my son, Chase. He turns 13 on Saturday. The big 13, the old teenager. I can't handle. And of course, to everyone out there listening, please have a fun, fantastic, and safe 4th of July on Sunday, especially everyone out here in the Pacific Northwest where it hasn't rained in months. Remember that, and we're not going to get rain for a while. So be safe with whatever you're going to do to celebrate. Please don't set off fireworks. Just don't this year. Save them for New Year's. Let's go crazy on New Year's, okay?
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not saying you can't. Just please don't. I have no idea what we're going to do, but if it's anything like this week, I am staying in the house and enjoying the air conditioning.
Yeah.
Make sure you post
your favorite patriotic moment. We'll be doing that starting probably tomorrow. We'll post our videos over the next couple days. I will put on Miracle on Ice. I know Randy will probably have a little snippet of Pat Tillman and all of those, the SmackDown national anthem. We'll do that. And I will post here in just a couple minutes, and I will put that mark by your Hawthorne Hawk as hopefully the mark of the year for AFL.
Absolutely the mark of the year. So again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I know it was an hour late, but things are happening. And it's our 40th episode next week. So
Yeah.
we're getting closer and closer to that year mark. We're getting closer and closer to being back in studio. Hopefully, when we go back to studio, we're not wearing masks and we go back to normal for that. We will see. But for now, that's Robert. I'm Randy. Have a great 4th of July. But for now, we are